Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Mindshifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeannie. Michael and Jeannie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rachma. Michael is the author of So Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeannie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeannie Ryce.
To the brightness within you, and the truth that is rooted within me.
Well, I can't get my phone off of mute.
You're on. You're on, Jeannie. Good morning. Good afternoon. Well, it looks like Jeannie's having some challenges with the technology, which is something we have experienced before. So we'll just say welcome to the show. We're, of course, celebrating or honoring Memorial Day and Veterans Day with the invitation, as we do every day, to be one who's willing to put an end to war. How are you going to contribute to putting an end to war? Well, here's our suggestion. Go to the website, www.whyagain.com. On the right-hand side, you'll see a link that says Download Worksheets. Click that link, and what you'll find there is the first 4 links will tell you all about the Aramaic forgiveness process, how to go inside and remove hostility and fear, which I would offer is the absolute root cause of war on planet Earth. So we're here to get rid of it. We're here to change the game. We invite you to join us. Our call-in number is 646-200-4169. We would love to hear your sweet voice. If you have a thought for us, if you have something to share, please call in and let us know what that is. If there's a way we can support you or assist you in learning the forgiveness process and moving out of the world of hostility or fear, that's precisely what we're here for. Jeannie, are you with us?
Yeah, my phone would not come off of mute. I had to hang up and dial back in. Oh, me.
Well,
anyway, we do have we do have Tim and David both with us, and we already have a caller.
Awesome. Well, we'll just say a quick hello to Tim and David and see if either of them have anything to share.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm, or I guess it's just afternoon, and just rocking along here, helping people with worksheets, helping people with the forgiveness process, and happy to be on the team. How are you, David?
I'm doing well, Tim, for asking, and getting ready for the holiday, and things are going well. So we have a caller, huh?
So let's hear from our caller.
Area code 718, you're on the air.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello,
Hello?
718, you are on the air.
Oh, hi. How are you?
I'm blessed and highly favored. How about you?
I am, too. Blessed and highly favored. Thank you
Awesome.
for answering my call. I heard you say that you had, like, a topic. You were going to talk about something in particular?
For today?
Yeah.
Well, we don't at this moment have a topic, unless Nene is on the phone. We talked with her about covering some ideas yesterday, but I don't know that she's ready for that. Is Nene on the phone, Jeannie?
She's not on yet, no.
Okay. Well, then we don't have a topic. Did you have one to suggest for us, or did you have something you'd like to chat about?
Yeah, I wanted to chat about, like, for example, like, things that keep happening in your life, like, if something happens over and over again, you know, I guess it's like a lesson that you have to learn. So, you were going to say something?
No, go ahead.
So my lesson is always revolving around relationships. I'm pretty good with relationships with females, but I'm not seeming to have great relationships with males. But you know, I'm not sure why. Like, I've been in like counseling and therapy and things of that nature, and I try to keep up a constant habit of meditation, but I just keep looking and I just don't see it, where this is stemming from. Like, why am I unable to establish the same kind of great relationships that I have with females, with males? Like, I don't have any close male friends, but I have plenty of female close friends, you know what I mean?
Right.
And all my relationships with men have never really worked out. They last for a little while, and then for one reason or another, they just don't work out. So
Right.
I don't know where to trace this back to, or how to change this circumstance in my life so that it doesn't keep repeating again and again and again, that I finally get the message and learn.
I hear you. Have you checked out and done any of the forgiveness or reality management worksheets that are on our website?
No, I haven't.
So there's the starting point. I would suggest that you go to www.whyagain.com. Of course, the title of my book is Why Is This Happening to Me Again? You can download the book free on the website, or you can order it, through the catalog. Also, on the right-hand side of the website, you'll see a link that says Download Worksheets. And if you go to that link, the first 4 links will give you Chapter 24 from my book, which explains how to do the forgiveness process. It will give you the actual worksheet itself, the latest worksheet. It will give you 2 links to radio shows where we've guided some step-by-step through the whole worksheet. So there's a whole full set of instructions for doing the worksheet process.
Okay.
In those 2 radio shows, you can just click on them or right-click and have it save it to your computer somewhere where you will know where it is, and then you can just double-click on it and listen to the full MP3 of the radio show that will walk you through the whole process. And the forgiveness process, as we teach it, has nothing to do with what the world teaches as forgiveness. If we have a relationship that goes sour, what most of the world counsels us to do is, you just forgive them. You just let them off the hook for the fact that happened, which I would offer has nothing whatsoever to do with forgiveness. That's a pardoning process, which, it's nice if they're off base. It's nice to pardon them, but that has nothing to do with forgiveness. The forgiveness process is how you drill down into the hidden parts of your own mind that keep sabotaging you in your relationships. It's how you look under the surface of that process. So there's where my starting point would be, or my suggestion for a starting point, is go to that worksheet, start to use it. As you start to use it, and again, I'd invite you to listen to those 2 radio shows, or 2 very different processes that I walk people through. The link number 3, which is the first MP3, is the most awesome forgiveness process I've ever walked anybody through. We had a young lady who was a medical doctor who was very courageous in getting on the show and really bearing her soul and bringing out some pretty heavy-duty stuff. And so you'll have a full set of instructions. So I invite you to listen to that. And then if you have questions on using the process, then I'd invite you to call back in and let's go to work. We'll support you right here on the phone. Now, beyond that, let me just ask a couple of questions. How is your relationship with your dad?
Well, my dad is no longer alive, but when he was, we were frightened of him. Like, it wasn't a great relationship. He was like a very cold person, always fighting my mother,
Okay. Then so I take it your relationship that your mom had with your dad was a pretty dramatic and traumatic one.
Yeah. Okay.
So one of the things we talk about with with what we call the human mind, with this body's mind. If I say to you, don't think about the color of your car, what happens?
I'm going to think about the color of my car, maybe.
So in fact, what's really happening is you've got brain cells for the color of your car, and my question resonates or fires those brain cells. It really isn't a thinking process. It's the same as you take two tuning forks. So I have a middle C tuning fork, and I put it in front of a second middle C tuning fork. The second middle C tuning fork is going to start to vibrate. Now, is that second tuning fork thinking? Not at all. All it's doing is replicating or expressing the frequency that came into it. So the first tuning fork vibrates, sets up an energy. And our whole focus is how energy systems work and how we as human beings function as energy systems. So if you have a tuning fork and having watched your parents and then lived in fear of your parents or of your father, watched your parents in their strife and drama and trauma, you have tuning forks for relationships with men are strife, their drama and trauma. Mm-hmm. And I live in fear. Now, one of the things we know about fear is that fear clouds human judgment. We in this work, what we're looking to do is to support people in getting to function as fully operational human beings. And the way we define a human being is to hold a newborn child. Have you ever held a newborn?
Yes.
If you were to describe the essence of that newborn, what would you describe that newborn as?
Oh, my gosh. It's just, give me a minute. So, angelic. They're so angelic.
There you go. You just summed it all up in one word. So you just described you. You just described your father. You just described your mother. You just described every man you've ever been in relationship with. Angelic. However, if different tuning forks have been installed, in other words, we watched drama and trauma, hostility, fear, rage, grief, pain, then we've had, in a sense, had installed inside of us these tuning forks for hostility, fear, rage, grief, pain. And what will happen is, just like when the middle C tuning fork shows up, the second tuning fork starts to vibrate. If I'm a female and installed inside of me is fear of men from my relationship with dad, and a man shows up, instantly, just his presence is like that middle C tuning fork, my fear is going to start to vibrate. And if my fear starts to function, then my judgment will be clouded, and I won't be functioning as the angelic being that I am. I certainly am not likely to inspire him to function as the angelic being that he is. Mm-hmm. When we come into this world, the world's specialty is to install tuning forks for every kind of insanity that's ever happened in our bloodline. The rage, the fear, the grief, the pain, the loss, the hatred, the vengeance, the strife, the conflict, the physical abuse, the mental abuse, the emotional abuse that leads us into fear. So here's my input for you. Your job, should you choose to accept it, and this tape will not self-destruct, your job is to uninstall all of those tuning forks. Guess what that process is called in the ancient Aramaic language? It's called forgiveness. So as opposed to if you have a relationship with a man and you're living out of fear, so the tendency is to use words and language based in fear. Oftentimes people who live in fear use a drug called anger to cover up their fear. So oftentimes the words used will be those based in anger and hostility. And that's like a tuning fork. If I used words based in fear and anger in my relationship, again, if I'm that female, and I use the words of hostility and fear in my relationship, that tuning fork vibrating in me, those words, are just like the middle C tuning fork. If he's got any of that in him, that same tuning fork, there's no choice about it. He can say, I never want to function out of hostility again. I'm never going to do that again. But if I show up and vibrate that in me, literally on an energetic level, there's going to be a transfer, and he's going to be thinking about the color of his car. Those brain cells are going to fire. And when they fire, they cloud perception. They cloud behavior. They take us out of our angelic being and presence and put us into the insanity of the world. so what our work is about with this show, and what our whole body of work, our teaching center, our travel work is about, is supporting people in learning how to forgive, how to remove those so-called tuning forks. Now, here's what happens. If I have pain in me, what I tend to do is to deny ownership of my pain, my fear, my anger, whatever it is. I tend to deny ownership of it, and when I do that, I dissociate from my own pain. So I say things like, well, gee, I don't have any idea why my relationships aren't going well, because I'm dissociated from that part of my mind. And I can want to change that part of my mind forever. It's not going to change until I can crack open that dissociated state, take ownership for and responsibility for what's going on inside of me, and literally uninstall or remove that tuning fork, so to speak. Then, instead of words based in fear or hostility, which will tend to trigger the same thing in the person I'm in relationship with, I'll be speaking words from my angelic presence. Guess what that's going to do? It's going to tend to resonate or bring forward that same angelic presence in him. When you get two people on the pathway of the willingness to do that, instead of functioning out of the pre-installed generational hostility and fear. You look at the Old Testament story of the Jews wandering in the desert for 40 years, and you go, well, this was a two-week trip. Well, why did it take them 40 years?
Yeah.
And then you read the story of that, and it's really not about some old fogies in the desert thousands of years ago. It's about you and I. The desert is another term for the unconscious. And you remember they said in order to get out of the desert, the old generation had to die off. That didn't mean everybody in old physical bodies had to physically die. The root of the word generation is genari. It means cause. All of the old causes held in the mind. The tuning forks installed from the previous generations had to be removed. Elsewise, by the very simple fact we hold those energies within us, we will tend to resonate, or pull somebody in who has a similar frequency, a similar resonance, and then we'll tend to trigger each other into activity. One of two things will occur when I'm triggered into activity. I'm either going to stay in denial and say, look what you've done to me, and you have a problem, and you better change or else. And that means that the part of my mind that I've denied and dissociated from that holds this pain, that this person now resonates for me, I build my brain's image of them out of that energy in myself, and then they show up in my mind with my problem attached. I'm in pain, but I think they're the one with the problem. Of course, that's pretty illogical. If they're the one with the problem, obviously they'd be the one with the pain. But I don't know it because I'm hiding that part of my own mind. What happens with that worksheet process is it shows you how to get to that hidden part of your mind. And it could be an experience from being in utero. It could be an experience from being a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 20, whatever stage those energies were taken on by us. And so ultimately what we're saying you're going to have to do in order to clean up your relationships is you're going to go in and you're going to uninstall, so to speak, forgive all the tuning forks of hostility and fear in relationships from all of your generations. Now you say, wow, that sounds like a big project. Yes, it's a big project, but that's the work. And, of course, when you're really, really willing to do that, the tendency will be that you'll set up a tuning fork, a frequency, a vibration that says to the world, instead of, hey, world, I have this fear and pain and I need somebody who will abuse me like my father did. Hey, world, I have this fear and pain and I'm looking for someone who is willing to do the work with me and to learn how to heal these dynamics in ourselves. And then we'll tend to draw somebody in with a different dynamic. And then the work begins. Because what we call in our Healing Through Relationships workshop, we offer that most relationships are made of matching bags of garbage. And the world calls those relationships love relationships. And they're perfect. The matching bags of garbage are perfect because the things that I hide from myself literally on a physiological level become my physical diseases, or so-called physical diseases. And the universe doesn't want us diseased, so the universe will send us somebody who will resonate and show that to us. And usually it's the person that we're most closely connected to, because we don't open those deeper parts of our minds unless we're in a space of a certain amount of rapport and trust with someone. And the minute that we intercourse with them, the world warned us about being promiscuous. It wasn't because of what genitals do. The reason they warned us, the ancients who understood how this energy system worked, the reason they warned us about promiscuity is because the minute you intercourse with someone, you take on their whole genetic structure, and you give them access to yours. So now, all of a sudden, they have access to parts of your mind that you have no idea are there. All they have to do is turn their head the right way, and there it will be. And, of course, vice versa, you have access to parts of them. If you are in a committed space of healing yourself, and you can do this within the context of no relationship or in a relationship, if you are committed to healing yourself, you begin deinstalling, removing these tuning forks for pain, for fear, for grief, and loss. And if you're at a high enough level of commitment, you'll find somebody who'll play with you and say, yeah, I'm ready to do this. And now, instead of the drama and trauma will come up, but because instead of blaming your partner for it, you're in ownership. Instead of saying things like, you really made me angry, you say, gee, when you said thus and so to me, that really brought anger up in me, and I'm realizing that this anger defiles my perception. It makes me a little bit loony, and what I would love is support in healing my anger. And all of a sudden, the dynamics of the relationship begin to shift and change, and healing occurs. And then we become the perfect person in relationship, and the person we're in relationship with plays with us, and things change. The key is the process of forgiveness, the willingness to put the pen to the paper. And what we suggested when you start that process, when you put the pen to the paper the first time, that you begin by doing 5 a day for at least 40 days. And what will happen in that 40-day period of time, in the ancient teachings, the term that was used for the unconscious, or this dissociated mind we're speaking about, was the desert. 40 days in the desert will empower you immensely in your relationships, looking at your own unconscious dynamics. And we are going to do a show, I'm not sure exactly when. I haven't heard back from Nene, but if you're on the show yesterday, we talked with a woman named Nene who started doing this work last January 2nd, came to Heartland, did our teacher training program, is now teaching the work, and she's been through many, many layers of healing. You might want to keep an ear for just when we'll be doing that show with Nene, because what she agreed to yesterday was she was going to kind of do a timeline, and she's gone through just so many things. I mean, major issues with Dad, and when she was small, the rejection of Dad, and one issue in particular that happened for her at Heartland, and she shared it on the show, so I'm free to share it. Was that she was about 6 years of age, and in her culture, which is Hispanic, her father was supporting her brother in having a lover in his home while he was married to another woman, which I guess in that culture is kind of traditional. And the pain of the 6-year-old who really loved her sister-in-law and watched her brother and her father conspiring for her brother to be able to, play footsie with his other woman. And, those are the kinds of tuning forks, so to speak, that she had gone in and started to remove, and has just awesomely changed everything in her life, from her finances to her relationship with her daughter to her relationship with herself. She had shared with me just recently that she comes from a culture that says you have to be in relationship with a man, and that she recently met someone who just right off the bat was, when you start keying into how words operate, she was able to just observe how his words were reflective of the kind of abuse that he was capable of. And instead of, well, I don't have a relationship with a man, so I have to be with this guy, she's like, thanks very much, but I think I'll pass. She was able to see what was coming without having to get herself back into the soup pot. So Nene is going to do a show with us sometime probably within the next week. And so keep an ear to the show, and we'll be letting folks know when we're going to do that. And she traces her last year. It hasn't been an easy year for her. She started out day one, January 2nd. She actually came to a workshop in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And she started doing the 5 worksheets a day and has been doing that for a year, almost a year now. January 2nd will be a year. And the changes that she's gone through are just awesome. And the changes she's helping others to do. So that's my input. Does that leave you with a...
Well, I'm going to say that, you said so many things. I'm so grateful, and I'm thankful, that you have shared so much with me. And I'm going to follow through. I'm going to follow through because I need healing, because I see this like a pattern. Like I see it in my life, and I was thinking about my father, the things he probably went through. And
I understand.
Huh?
I understand. And if when we're finished with this show, very shortly afterward, Jeannie has the MP3 of it posted to the website, and so you can just click and again, right-click on the link and download it to your computer, and you can listen to it over and over. I know we covered a lot of territory, and much of it you'll hear much differently on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th listen to it. So you'll be able to pick up that MP3, and as you enter into this process, the purpose of our radio show is to support you. And so as you open up the worksheet process and start to work with that, we are here to support you, and we're delighted for you to call in with any and every question that you have. That's the whole purpose of our show. And no question is too small. Any question that you have in terms of starting to use the process is a question that 1,000 other people who listen to the show have as well. And so we would be most delighted to be supporting you. Where are you located?
I'm located in Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn, New York. Okay. We don't have anybody up there doing the work that I know of directly, so this show will probably be the best link that you have. We are, and I don't know how footloose and fancy-free you are, but we are doing several week-long workshops when I say week-long, we'll be doing, a Sunday afternoon, like on the 7th of January, we'll be in Fort Lauderdale, and we'll do a Sunday afternoon workshop, and a Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, all day Saturday workshops. And then we're looking at probably the first week in April doing a 9-day workshop that will be residential. So it'll be a full-time residential workshop, and it's going to be up in Palm Coast. If we put that together, it'll be somewhere in around the first week of April. It'll be a residential workshop where we'll be doing, people will be in residence there. We'll be doing food. It'll include the accommodations, the workshop materials, everything for the 9 days. So we're looking at doing that in April. So lots of ways for support. You can also go to the website, and the DVDs that you might want to look at ordering.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do some more in-depth study of the work, would be Why Is This Happening to Me Again? That's our first and most important workshop, and that's the one that goes through the forgiveness process and lays this whole idea out of how we work as humans.
You want me to start with? Tell me which CD to start with.
Okay, if you're going to start, we actually have a 4-hour CD version or a 2-hour DVD, which of course is a visual. You've got the video as well. And that's Why Is This Happening to Me Again? That would be the starting point if you want to do that. And then from there, there's one called Healing Through Relationships. It kind of takes things to the next level. And then there's Communication. Did you hear what I think I said, which helps to clean up communication patterns. There is Codependence to Interdependence. That's a really awesome beginning of a series. And on the website, the DVDs sell for $40 each. When we travel, we do a package price. And I don't know if you're on the web right now or if you're on the in the chat room or not, but if you want, we'll be glad to give you, or anybody that's listening to the show, that package price. So instead of a set of 5, and a good relationship series is Why Is This Happening to Me Again? Healing Through Relationships, Communication, Did You Hear What I Think I Said? The Circle of Life and How to Play It, and Codependence to Interdependence. So if you want to do something like that, instead of being $200, we do a package price when we travel of $150, and we'll offer that to anybody that's on the show that wants to do that. So if you want to contact us.
The way you would have to order that, though, is because the website itself won't give you that price.
Right.
You'd have to do a donation, and in the comment section of the donation box, tell us what you're ordering. And then include the amount for shipping.
What's the name of the package that I'm getting?
If you just, what is your name again?
My name is Ramona.
Ramona. Okay. So Ramona, if you decide you want to do that, I'll know what the package is that you want. If you want to order it, the package will be $150. There's $10, or actually it's $12.50 shipping and handling. So it'll be a total of $162.50. If you go to the website, and anybody that's on the site will be glad to offer this same package price that we only offer when we're traveling. And so if you go to the Why Again site, whyagain.com, on the right-hand side you'll see a link that says donation. If you go in and click that link, and the donation is $162.50, you just go in and put the amount in and click update and then put in a credit card, or if you've got PayPal, you can pay it through PayPal. Then just put the note in that you want the relationship series, and I'll know what it is, and we'll ship it right out to you. Well, when I say ship it right out to you, we're actually on the road. We're in the middle of a tour in Florida, but my daughter just had a baby last week, and so we're actually in St. Louis. We will be back in Florida on the 6th, and that's where all of our inventory is. So we would ship that to you on the 6th or 7th of, maybe the 7th or the 8th of January. So if you decide you want to do that, you could just click the donate button. Go ahead and do that, and we'll get those shipped off to you as soon as we get back to Florida and have our hands on the inventory.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome, and we're delighted that you called, and your question is awesome, and I think you probably opened a space for lots of people, and we are happy if you call us as often as you have a question about anything to do with doing your process, and we just hold the space for your work and for your healing and for you getting ready to have the best year yet of your eternal life.
Thank you. Thank you. Blessings.
Okay, nice to meet you, Ramona. Blessings.
Same here.
Okay, bye-bye. Dr. Tim, David, do either of you gentlemen have anything to add to the conversation with Ramona? Actually, I should have asked that question before Ramona left, but my apology.
Well, I just think that it's, again, great to have somebody new on board and somebody who's willing to actually look at it. And I don't know if there's any possibility for her, but if she does, I hope she gets the CDs and then gets encouraged to start a support group, because even if she's got just 2 or 3 other people with her to start working on this, it will accelerate her growth, and it will create a space of love and support that will allow her to do more than she could do alone.
Yes, good thought. Thank you for that input.
I can't say enough about how the Tuesday evening support group that used to be in Fox River Grove but is now in in Woodstock, is the highlight of my week. And I look forward to it each week. I look forward to the personal growth I get. I look forward to the excitement of sharing with others who are choosing to take time on a weekday night to do something other than sit in front of a television set or go out to a movie, and actually put effort into making their lives better. It is just it's a thrill and an honor. And I would encourage her to do the same, because if she gets those DVDs in a package, she's got the core of having a support group right there. All she needs is a room with a with a TV and a DVD player in it or a computer these days, and she could have 2 or 3 people sitting with her and begin doing worksheets and learning from those lectures tools that will transform all of their lives. So,
and there's a whole section that Jeannie has done. You know, when I first met Jeannie, she did a series of workshops, a week of workshops, and then she started a support group. And so she's written a lot of that stuff up, and it's on the website for starting a support group. You don't have to know anything about this work to start a support group. If you've got the DVDs, and now especially as we've got this radio show, you know, each week we're happy to hear from support group leaders who are just starting and offer you input and ongoing support. If you do start a group, basically most groups just start with showing the DVDs and doing worksheets together. So everybody's welcome to get one of those started, and as Dr. Tim says, the gifts it gives you as a facilitator are just so awesome and so fabulous. And, you know, you bring up that thought about those who sit in front of the television set, and it's interesting how most people are controlled by the hypnosis of the meaningless, that their lives are centered around, in order to avoid and not have to deal with what's going on inside of them, they're just so focused. You know, you look at the number of magazines at the checkout stand in the grocery store talking about this piece of gossip and that piece of trash and that piece of trash. And if the person who reads that trash would spend the same amount of time instead of focused on, you know, the latest star's life or, you know, the latest accident report or the latest bit of news or gossip, would spend that time on their own lives, the amount of time that's spent just with things like, well, music playing, television running, hostility, in order to avoid themselves, in order to keep from facing themselves. This game of distraction that this culture leads people into. And, of course, it's a very old game. It goes all the way back to the Colosseum in Rome. The Colosseum was all about keeping the peons distracted while the king just ripped them up one side and down the other for every wealth they had. And the people were in this distraction mode and they never realized what was going on. And so many hundreds of generations have come and gone under that game of the hypnosis of the meaningless. And to start to live a meaningful life is to start, I think it was Plato that said that a life unexamined is not worth living. I like to refine that thought from Plato just a little bit. A life unexamined is not living. It's simply replicating the past generations. You know, you can define how your relationships are going to go by looking at the way your parents' relationships went and their parents, unless you step in and start to interview from the perspective of truth what has happened in your generations, the tuning forks, so to speak, that have been installed, and begin to do the work of removing those. So that's what we're here to support you in, and everybody's listening to the show. Really, you know, listen to Tim's input and see if it's appropriate for you to start a group of people. There's this fabulous African proverb that says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Having someone to hold the space, cultivating a group of supporters to hold the space for this kind of change is just absolutely so valuable, so valuable. David, do you have any thoughts for Ramona? David, got your mute button on? Okay. I can hear some blips. David, I think you're trying to speak, but I'm not hearing you at all. So we'll see if you get that straightened out. And Jeannie, do you have any thoughts for Ramona? I've done so much with support groups and working with people in relationships. By the way, Jeannie does do one-on-one personal work over the phone using the worksheet process. So that's something else that's a possibility. But do you have any input for Ramona, sweetheart?
No, I was just putting into the chat room. There's actually someone called Brooklyn Realty Now in there, and I just typed, is this Ramona, because she said she was from Brooklyn, but I haven't heard back from them yet. But I typed in all the information about the CDs and DVDs. And the support group is actually on their website at www.whyagain.com/support. support_groups. But then there's the easiest way is just to go to whyagain.com and look down the right-hand side and go to support groups. There's information out there, suggestions of how to lead a support group. There are letters. Yes, it is Ramona in the chat room. Hi, glad you're there too. And there are locations of where support groups are. So if there's anybody out there and we don't have your information, please give it to us. We list it out there by state so that no matter where someone goes, they can look and see where there's a support group. And then there's letters from other people that have done support groups and from people that have attended support groups, so you can kind of get feedback on that. There's a question and answer section. So just lots and lots of information, and it's all based on experiences that we've had in the past running support groups and input that we've gotten from other people. So it's just an ongoing little site to help each other. And, of course, this radio show is called the Mind Shifters Radio, and that's what we call the support groups, is Mind Shifters support groups. So just to help each other and to build and to go on from there. You're not alone, that's for sure.
Awesome. Well, Jeannie, are there any other callers? Anything happening in the chat room?
No, there's just a little bit of it, chatting back and forth, no questions or anything in the chat room. And there's a lot of people on the switchboard today, but nobody else has their hand up. So the call-in number is 646-200-4169. And if you want to talk to Michael, please press 1. It lets me know to turn you on so that you can talk. And we'd love to hear your questions or comments.
Most definitely, 646-200-4169. Always when we get a call, and Ramona, we really appreciate your call because it gives us an opportunity to do real-time interaction around some of the real issues in people's lives. And of course, we're all in this together. We all have these dynamics that have happened in our lives. The way our culture tends to structure our minds, or at least what is called our minds, is pretty bizarre. And so here we are, and I don't care whether it's the doctor, the lawyer, or the Indian chief. The insanity is rampant in our culture. People think, well, if somebody's educated, then certainly being educated, then they are above the rest. But I'll tell you what, that guy you look at the office, or that gal you look at that seems so highfalutin and so well educated, when they go home, they do the same things you and I do. And when they do, and the hostility and fear comes up, their lives are just as insane as anybody else's. It's sad to watch, but you see oftentimes, the house on the hill where there's all the things and all the money in the world. But if you look at the relationship dynamics, you look at the hostility, the rage, the pain that's in so many of those family systems, that if instead of being focused on keeping the outside so neat and clean and making sure everybody keeps up appearances and it all looks good, if one would just take 1/10 of what they put into making things look good and go inside themselves and clean out the inner structure, then we would have family systems that really, truly do nurture those newborns in the way that we're designed to nurture. In the ancient scriptures, they talk about there would come a time when people would be incapable of natural affections. And then you look at the kinds of abuses that are done to newborns or small children, and you see this playing out of the incapability of natural affection. You look at people who are in a string of relationships that oftentimes it's more than one in a day, and how crazy it gets. And what we're here is to restore, and I love the word that you used, Ramona, to describe the holding of that newborn. That kind of really sums it all up as angelic. And the truth is, when you look around at the grumpy, at the pained, at the diseased, at the suffering, behind all of that is the angelic. And if you look into the ancient Eastern Orthodox teachings, the whole idea was to embody that angelic into our forms. But it's not easy to do. It's difficult to do while we've had this hostility and fear engraved in us and bought into it and function out of it. So the challenge is to remove that which has been engraved, to dig it out and remove it. Yes, sweetie?
Okay, Ramona asked, will this work for her 5-year-old? And I told her that yes, it would. And so anybody, if you'll go to whyagain.com and click on worksheets, there's also a child's version of the forgiveness worksheet. There are games. There's several things out there, the child's version of the commitment. So you might want to address that, too, how it works with children.
Absolutely. We've seen kids actually, Julie Haverstick is a school teacher who's done her work for the last quarter century or so. She did it in an inner school city in Dayton, Ohio. She actually wrote a book called Healing Children, Loving Children. And it's a set of lesson plans for how to do this work with small children. One year she did an intensive for parents and kids at Heartland. And there was a girl who was 9 years of age and her 4-year-old brother. And when there was an intermission, it was really so cool because at the intermission, just totally on their own, there were no adults around or anything, the 9-year-old and walking him through a worksheet. This 4-year-old successfully completed and felt the shift from worksheets. It's just amazing to see what happens. There's a young man that we met, actually a family that lived locally at Heartland several years ago, and this young man was, if there was ever a label of hyperactive, learning disordered, or learning disabled, this young man was labeled with all of it, and he was the ideal candidate for all the mind-destroying drugs in the world. And his mom and dad got involved in this work and started to do worksheets with him. And I remember one event in particular that was so powerful. This little guy, when we first met him, was 5. His parents became involved in the work, and we have a support team, a support group sessions, a work support program at Heartland. And so the 2 parents decided they were going to do it, but they couldn't both do it at once. So the first year, Dad did it. So he was a resident at Heartland for a year and did the work support program. His mom or his wife would bring the children to visit. They had 3 kids. They would bring the children to visit him, but they lived in their own home while he lived at Heartland. And then the next year, she did the work. She did the work support program. Dad stayed home with the kids. And I remember the second year, and they'd been working with the kids very intensively. This young man is now one of the brightest, most gentle, most cooperative kids I've ever seen. Nobody could even fathom labeling him as learning disabled or hyperactive in any way, shape, or form. And the kids, the way our center's laid out, the teaching room is kind of L-shaped, and the kids were off on one side. There were 3 or 4 kids there who were just quietly playing. And we're doing the intensive, and there's a person in the back of the room who pipes up in kind of an angry voice about how somebody, made them angry. And this little guy is over in the corner by himself, or pardon me, with these other kids playing, and, I didn't even realize that he was listening. But all of a sudden, his voice breaks through the room, and he, in his own way, informs this person of their error, this adult of their error. And the way he informs this person who's just blamed somebody else for their anger is this little guy pipes up and says, well, just this morning, my sister, she bringed up my anger. Now, this guy, by now he's about 7. This child of 7 knows that his sister doesn't make him angry, but that his sister brings his anger up. This adult, who's in an intensive, doesn't know that yet. And this was this little guy's way of teaching him that it wasn't somebody else who made him angry, but that someone could bring his anger up. And I turned to him, and it was just like, it was so out of the blue. And I turned and said, well, what did you do then? He said, I just asked my mother for a worksheet. 7. He asks for a worksheet when his anger comes up. Yes, it will absolutely work with your children. It's awesome to see what happens with children. Julie has several stories in her book. There was one kid who came into her classroom. I forget, he'd been kicked out of 3 or 4 different schools. It was toward the end of the year. I think there were about 8 weeks left in the year. He was not allowed to ride the school bus. He was so unruly. She taught kindergarten in grade 1. If I remember correctly, this was in a year that she was teaching grade 1. And this young boy came in. He's 2 years older than any of the other kids in the class. He comes in, he gets down on his hands and knees and goes around biting, and I don't mean playing, I mean biting the ankles of the other kids who were sitting at their desks. That's the kind of behavior mode this kid was in his first day of school. Julie took time with him personally to do worksheets. He invited his mother, and his mother came in and started to do worksheets. His mother said, I don't know what I'm going to do with this kid. He has been in an institution because he threatened to kill me. And I forget how many children. I believe this woman had 5 children. And Julie, if you happen to be on the show, maybe I've got some details off, but this is close enough to be accurate. But Julie could correct me if you're there. We'd appreciate a call in. But I believe she had 5 children, and the advice from her doctor was to keep her door locked at night because this kid had actually talked about how he was going to take a knife and go in and cut her throat. After 8 weeks, at the end of the year, this was her star student. She did worksheets. Mom did worksheets. Mom did worksheets with the child. Mom did worksheets for her own stuff. And they started to clean it up as a family. And at the end of the year, the last couple of weeks, this boy was helping her with doing worksheets and teaching it to the other kids. And the mother, in tears, thanked Julie for the fact that this was now her best child, her most well-behaved child. 8 weeks of doing this work. And kind of a sad afternote is this young man went on to grade 2 to another teacher's classroom and was having some challenges and went to Mrs. Haverstick and asked if he could have some worksheets. The teacher who was his teacher in grade 2 found out about that and just raked all over this kid for the fact that he went for help to heal himself over what was coming up in his classroom. Yeah, it works awesomely well with children. Sometimes getting adults to open up is a challenge. But here's this little guy who's from a background that's pretty heavy duty. Again, I don't remember all the details. It's in prison, whatever all of it was pretty insane. And his teacher blasts him in anger because he goes to his previous year's teacher and asks for worksheets and help in forgiving. Why isn't this taught from kindergarten up in every school in the country? Well, I'll leave you to ask that question, but here's what I know. People in hostility and fear make great slaves. They make great servants. Those who live as human beings in their angelic state, as Ramona shared it or put it out there, are a lot brighter than that. And they don't make very cooperative slaves. So that's my story about children. And Julie, if you're there, we'd love to hear your sweet voice. And we haven't heard you on the show for a while. Julie is a woman who now is retired from school teaching and lives at Heartland and actually is there and works to support people doing the work. So questions, thoughts, answers, ideas from anybody. Call us 646-200-4169. Jeannie, any callers, anything in the chat room, anything from David or you, Jeannie, or Dr. Tim on kids?
Julie's not on there.
No.
The conversation that's going on in the chat room, I was just listing the 5 smooth stones. Somebody was talking about children being intuitive, and I said, we all come in as open vessels with infinite possibilities, and intuition is just one of the 5 smooth stones that needs to be utilized to be who we are. It's just being ready to list the other 5 smooth stones besides intuition.
Oh, cool. Fabulous. And having brought that thought up, if there are no other questions, let's talk about 5 smooth stones for a minute and what that means. Someone may not have the brain cells for that, but if you go back into the ancient scriptures, you'll hear the story about this giant named Goliath, and this guy is, he's 9 feet tall, and he's got swords and shields and spears and helmets and armor, and he's invincible. Nobody can touch him. He is so powerful that nobody in the army who've been trained to fight will go out and fight him because they know they'll get killed, that they don't have a chance. And that's kind of like, let's drug somebody. Let's drug the kids because nobody could possibly change this behavior. So we'll just drug them, and that'll take care of them. They'll sit quietly in the back of the room and, okay, so their lives are wasted, but who cares? They're not a problem for the teacher anymore. That's Goliath. And when we feel like we're in a posture, that story is not one about, a physical giant and a physical young boy who takes down the giant with these 5 smooth stones. It's a metaphor for our lives. And if you look at the average person, you talk to them about how when the stress is up and the chips are down, Goliath takes over the hostility and fear-based mind. And they can't fight him and they can't defeat him, and there's just no way around it. It runs their lives. No, I don't want to function that way. I never want to do that kind of rage again. And then the next time the stress is up and the chips are down, Goliath takes over and we're back in the rage or the fear or whatever it is. But if you go back and read that story, you hear that there's this one little shepherd boy, and this shepherd boy isn't even big enough to wear armor. His name's David. And he says, I'll take on the giant. Now, he's motivated. The king has offered his daughter. Hey, beautiful daughter, I'm motivated. So he's going to take 5 smooth stones. Now, if it were a physical battle, I would think logically, if I were going to go out and fight a giant with stones, I'd look for the most ragged, jagged, most damage-inducing stones I could find. But that wasn't what David had. He had 5 smooth stones, and they were called smooth stones because they were practiced faculties. Smooth meaning that they had been used and he was practiced at them. So he goes out into the battlefield, so-called battlefield, and what's that? It's your own mind. It's quite a task to defeat an enemy that has an outpost in your own head. That's where Goliath is, in your own head. The Goliath that you need to be concerned about is not the one out there, it's the one between your ears. And so think about this shepherd boy. How does he come to be able to take down this giant that nobody else will even face? Well, what do shepherd boys do at night? Well, here they are out sitting under the stars, and they have to be going into some kind of an altered state. There's a book called Magical Child, another one called Magical Child Matures by a man named Joseph Chilton Pierce. And I'm not sure which one it is, but he recounts the common link between brilliant, happy children. And the common link between brilliant, happy children is that as children, they all had plenty of blank staring time. You remember when we were in school and we did blank staring time? You were staring out the window, and they called it daydreaming, and you got rapped on the knuckles and told to go to work. That's what the king wants you to do. But that blank staring time is spontaneous meditation, connecting to our higher source and our higher selves. And so what did David do? He developed those 5 spiritual faculties: intuition, will, true perception, imagination. Let me see what I missed. I missed one. Intuition, imagination, will, true perception.
Reason.
The ability to truly choose instead of just go with whatever the heart. And so those 5 smooth stones, those spiritual faculties that when we've practiced them, that Goliath within ourselves, that hostility and fear-based self, we take it apart and it no longer has control over us. That's the real meaning of that story. And so that's what we're here to support you in doing, being able to take down Goliath and live as this awesome being that you were designed to be, angelic as Ramona describes it. Please bring a stranger to the show tomorrow. We're delighted to be here to support you. Create the best year yet of your eternal life. Happy holy days. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Mind Shifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeannie, who present the internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeannie are here every Monday through Friday on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeannie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com.